Greetings and welcome back to Becoming Undone, the podcast where high achievers transform from falling apart to falling into place. Man, this week I am super stoked. Guest joining me is someone I've known and appreciated and respected for a long time. Spoke into my own family as a coach for my son. Joined by somebody who knows a thing or two about rising through adversity, leading with heart, building champions on and off the field. Coach Chris Softley, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been quite a whirlwind, and Lubbock Christian is one of those overnight successes, a decade in the making, or in many cases, depending on how you look, decades in the making. TAP state champion football coach, athletic director, two-time Henderson Cup champion. You've got this mix of leadership, of grit, of faith into everything you touch. I want to take it way back. As a kid, what did you want to be growing up and why?
So I grew up in a family of 4 boys, small western Nebraska town on the farm. And I knew I didn't want to be a farmer. Although I loved, the wheat, the corn, the blue sky. I love that. But I knew that wasn't for me. Early on, there was a time when Nebraska football was good. It was a long time ago, but there was a time. And when you grow up in Nebraska, that's all you want to do is be a part of the Big Red. And, in one way, shape, or form. Being a fan is fun. Being a player was absolutely a dream. And then someday being a coach like Tom Osborne, who I felt like shaped the whole state by the way he led with character and conviction. And he started some mentoring programs, and I read his books when I was young. It was just like, man, that's what coaching is to me. And to be honest, it's kind of funny looking back, is I didn't actually know that was about that. Like, Tom Osborne was one of these guys. I thought that was how everybody was. I thought that's how coaching was done. And I thought, what a cool profession. This is what I want to do. I want to impact men. And then you get into it and you realize, oh man, he was elite and special. And so that's what I was attracted to, was wanting to be a man that takes advantage of the platform. Billy Graham says a coach will impact more people in 1 year than many will in a lifetime. True or not, man, it's a great perspective on the impact that we give the words coach says. And so I knew early on is I don't want to waste this life. I want to do things that are eternal. I want to make a difference. And I don't just want to win football games and be 6 feet under and people be like, wow, he was a really good football coach. I mean, ultimately that's meaningless. I wanted to make true impact like Tom Osborne.
Yeah, no, huge fan of Coach Osborne's work. Famously, Nebraska, the weather conditions, they intentionally weren't a throwing offense. They were a run game, grinded out. And that's the birthplace. A lot of people don't realize this. The birthplace of collegiate strength and conditioning on a formal level started at Nebraska, where they would take in routinely 1- and 2-star athletes at the beginning and crank them out into the Tommy Frazier's and the other folks. So I love that mentality, and definitely was a transformative work for me to read his early on. The best coaches I've ever known, they were really good at the X's and O's, but they weren't just masters of the X's and O's. They connected with their athletes and they knew their stories. You've kind of alluded to this, but if I were to just prompt you with that, you coach your players to have that elevator speech, that 30-second or 60-second summary. Tell me your story, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, that was it. It was Tom Osborne. It was, I want to play as long as I can. I felt like I was born to be a quarterback and just apparently not a very good one, not long enough. And so played college football, tore my shoulder, and then you kind of had an identity walk with the Lord of, hey, look, I laid the plan out pretty clearly for you, Lord. Like, what was confusing about this? And
Right.
had to circle back and think, man, your ways are higher than my ways, your thoughts higher than my thoughts. And I still don't fully understand what that means, and we never will, but just started to be a little bit more open-handed to the fact that maybe my identity was wrapped up in this game of football. Mm-hmm. How can I use it as a tool, but it not be something that replaces the Lord in my life? And so then started to pursue, okay, what does that look like in coaching? How can I pass that on to others? Finished playing football on the defensive side of the ball after a couple shoulder surgeries. He came to Abilene Christian University and was a grad assistant there in Abilene, Texas. Loved it. Saw football played at a high level. We scored 93 points in a game, one of the first games that I was in the booth for. And I thought, man, Texas is different. And then met a girl, and she was playing basketball there at ACU as well. She later became my wife. And then Autumn and I have kind of entered into this ministry of how can we take the opportunity to coach and the kind of these two loves of the love of sports and competition and the love of Jesus, and how can we walk in line with what we feel like the Lord's placed on our hearts.
I love how you put that, how oftentimes we have great plans. And even if we communicated those great plans to the Lord, like, why didn't he let those unfold? Give me a chance to be a superstar. I can show you I can handle that adversity. If a 16-year-old Chris Softley could somehow be moved through space and time and land on campus at Lubbock Christian High School today in 2025, and we gave him a couple of weeks or maybe a month or so to acclimate, what would his teammates and his coaches say about him after he had a chance to be there?
Yeah, if you gave me a couple weeks in that example, I think he'd pick it up. I think he'd adapt. I think he'd eat it up. He'd be all in. He'd be like, this is what I was missing. Because what I say so often is man, I was a 16-year-old and I just, people that say they don't have regrets, I don't get that. I mean, I did the right thing and I was on the right path, but I was prickly and rough, and I didn't live with as much grace as I would have loved to. And I just had these confusion, issues of how does football matter rightly? Why doesn't it matter as much to these guys as it does to me? And all that to say is we try to build this program in a way where, as if I was talking to 16-year-old Chris, it would reach his heart and it would make sense. It would put the pieces together in a way that it just took me so long to do. I wasn't smart enough to do it. And that's really the passion of what we do here. Truthfully, we tell them a lot. We still work out with the kids. We run and lift. It's like, guys, we're serious. We're not asking you to do anything we aren't totally hook, line, and sinker bought in on. Like, if there's a better way and we find out, we'll change it. But for now, like, trust us. This is exactly what we would want and desire if I was you as a 16-year-old. This is how we're going to teach you how to maximize on the field, in the classroom, and then hopefully later on as husbands and fathers and contributing to society.
100%. And the beauty of being in a place for as long as you have now is that you've gotten a chance to see some of that fruit. You've gotten a chance to be at weddings, and you can see how that culture continues to proliferate. The guy that connected us, Doug Dindy, his daughters both are Lubbock Christian alums. One thing he mentioned to me was how, his daughters played softball and volleyball and basketball, and, they're in college now and even married, and they're still in the weight room. Like, things they learned, the life lessons that they learned at Lubbock Christian didn't just help them be successful high school athletes. While that's great, it's that enduring normalization of whole person development that I think is so beautiful about what you do.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. That's a sweet story. And it really is. I've got a little Jordan here of kind of thank you notes. You know how those are, whether it's a text from a kid on your phone or it's a thank you note that they write you. Those are really special when you get to hear from their perspective a couple of years removed. And it's like, hey, we had a phone call the other day from a kid who didn't play football. He played and then he quit and didn't play his last 2 years. And he reached out, still had my number. And he said, hey, coach, I just want you to let you know that through a long story, series of events, but some things have become really clear to me now. And he said, and all of a sudden, all these things and these lessons, these verses and these teachings that have been somewhere in my heart, he said, they started to come out. And he said, basically he said, I just want to say thank you. And he started telling me a story. And it was just, once I had a daughter, then I started getting emotional all the time. This is one of those deals. I was just like, wow, Lord, like this is maybe you call it a God wink or whatever, but it's like, those are the things you don't even know. Like, he's working deeply in a 6-year relationship around curves and sovereignly orchestrating. And what a blessing that he allows us to get a small snapshot of the way he's working in us and through us. And you're right. It's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, but we're thankful to be a small part in the big puzzle.
Yeah. Tremendous. I know you've got hundreds of those stories. One thing this show has taught me is that every champion has been broken somewhere along the way. You don't just win, 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 win. Life is not just a series of things going exactly the way we wanted it. And in many cases, thank goodness, right? What is a moment maybe from your personal or professional journey where you truly hit rock bottom?
That injury I mentioned earlier, when I was a high school senior, it was junior year to senior year. We do the summer camp circuit. I'm going to play quarterback. I go to Nebraska. Frank Soldier is the coach. I play really well. He comes and finds me. Is like, hey, you're on our radar. And in my mind, I'm like, let's go. Katie bar the door. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And then between that camp, I think it was like June 26th, and the start of football, so a month and a half, something happened. I tore my shoulder somewhere in there. I think I was lifting weights, but I mean, it's just the snap of fingers. Like, it all seems like it's adding up, and then it's gone. And that was, I mentioned that, it was just a big test for me in terms of who I was and my identity, how I would respond to adversity, how I was as a teammate when things didn't go well for me personally. The senior year didn't work out the way it was always dreamt to be in small town Grant, Nebraska. We were supposed to be the next great group to win a state championship. And I love my hometown, and I'm passionate about that. We failed on so many of those levels, and the expectations and the weight and the promises and the dreams, it was hard. And then go to college and tear it again. And, that's still hard. It's to so many people, an injury is one thing, but man, to an athlete, when that's your identity incorrectly wrapped up in that, I mean, it's almost everything. And so that was the brokenness. And try to now have an understanding of that God's discipline is truly a grace of, in so many ways, he's the good father that keeps us from trouble that we didn't even know we were going to walk into. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I miss that. It's still hard watching Husker football games, or I watched that Netflix quarterbacks documentary. I just watched episode 1, and I got done. I told my wife, I said, I just want you to let you know, I said, I still struggle with this comparison of what could have been and should have been and all my dreams. And I ultimately just opening your hands up and being like, look, better. You're the potter, I'm the clay. And I want to use that. What you're asking deeply is don't waste that. I want to use that to be more empathetic as a coach. I think one thing we don't talk about enough in the industry is like, man, kids truly respond to empathetic coaches that can look somebody in the eye and say, I get it. I'm sorry. I hear you. I feel that way too. I've been there. And trust me, let me walk through this with you. I just think that gives our kids such a relief. We didn't always grow up with that. And I think it is a game changer in today's world. And I think that's what you want for your kids. It's what I want for my kids. I want a teacher and a coach to come up beside them and be like, put their arm around them and go, I get it. And I'm going to walk through this with you. And so I do think in a sad twist of fate, I think it's made me a better coach.
Yeah. No, I certainly understand the sentiment there. You go from state champion in football in 2022, followed by a runner-up in 2023, the Henderson Cup, which is a really big deal. I don't know if all listeners understand this, but when I was at Arizona, they used to talk about the Sears Cup. Now it's the Learfield Cup in college sports. It's like the award for the best overall program. And in TAPS, that even includes extracurriculars like band and theater and all these things. So back-to-back Henderson Cup champions. This is, the success there. And then even in other sports that you're the AD for, but not necessarily involved in the day-to-day coaching. Girls basketball is a legacy. Volleyball, your brother Kurt with boys basketball. Looking back on your career, and it's decidedly not done yet, what win are you the most proud of and why?
Nothing like asking me what my favorite kid is, right? Man, what win am I most proud of and why? Probably the boys basketball state championship, because it is my brother. It's my little brother. It's somebody that I brought to Texas. It was my idea. I did the persuading. I want it to be a good idea. I don't want to bring him down here to fail, and neither do mom and dad. Right. And so there's a lot to that, but as an AD, that was a program that needed to go from good to great. As a brother, we had a conversation at the beginning of that year, and I had just laid some things out for him pretty openly of, here's what I need to see from your teams now. Like, there's no do-over. And if there is, you know, we're going to need to move on, and we're going to need to talk about how we're going to communicate that with mom and dad. And so for it to switch and for just to go from good to great. I mean, he was elite. The kids were elite. They responded, the toughness, and then to go in and beat a team that was better in every area. 3 D1 kids on this team, and we got kids that are going to be great lawyers and doctors, but you know, no college basketball players. And one of these guys on the St. Francis team was a McDonald's All-American. I told our kids, I said, we go to McDonald's. I said, we're almost the same. And he went in there. I mean, that state championship, that one was special because it was so much of Lubbock Christian, a little bit of family, but our culture, out toughing teams, staying steady in the boat when we got down and things didn't go our way, just the mental and physical resilience, and then them maximizing their talent. And so that one was special.
Yeah, love that. I will tell you, my family's moved to Waco now, and a lot of athletic championships for TAPS and for that matter, band, and a lot of things happen here in Waco. And I will tell you, I drive by that stadium fairly regularly, and I think of you, and I think of that team, and I think of those 2 seasons. And I'll tell you, I will intentionally go out of my way to drive on the visitor side of the stadium because that's where the great memory happened. That's where we won. Yeah. On the press box side, that's the home side, and we didn't win that year. Right. But that 2022 season, I want to share a memory with you that stands out to me, because even though if you look at the score, like Lubbock Christian led wire to wire, it was never really in doubt. But for some reason, I mean, they come in as the defending state champions, and it never really felt like we were safe. Yeah. And I remember watching right before the start of the 4th quarter, you were on the sideline, backs Townsend, all state everything, and you're throwing the ball, warming up your quarterback. And I thought, this is a proud dad moment. This is a guy who I knew parts of your story, but not necessarily all of it. And you're getting a chance to warm up an all-state MVP quarterback before the 4th quarter of a state championship. And even though that didn't happen for you, you're there and you made that happen for him. And I thought, this is the last time these two are going to play catch together. And I'm right there with you. Before I had a daughter, I could talk about this stuff without welling up. But man, it just moved me to think, we're here. Coach Softley is about to deliver the first state football championship in a very long time to the 806.
Yeah, that was cool. You just took me back. Hadn't thought about that for too long, so shame on you. But no, because I remember that moment. I remember telling him, and I said, hey, no matter what, like, I'm proud of you, and I always got your back. And so, sorry, I say that because, like, I talk about my story as a quarterback and how I didn't feel like we did achieve those things that I wanted to for my school and my city. And just knowing that our kids were that same pressure on their shoulders. And so playing catch like we've done 1,000 times and just have those words come out. And I was like, man, that was really good. like it wasn't me, it was just like, man, that's what I needed to hear. That's what he needed to hear. That's what I need to hear at high school. It's just like go play out of freedom. Like, no matter what, man, like, let it rip, and we'll let the results fall where they may. And no matter what, I'm proud of you. I love you. I got your back. And so that's what got me when you said that story, because then the cool part is that, you know, we let it rip, and those guys, we scored 21 points in 55 seconds.
Yeah. And
that was sweet. That was special. And it was just like a total eruption of many, many years of West Texas not winning state championships, Lubbock Christian, and that was a special moment. That was a lot of joy. It was special.
100%. And I love the way you say that, because that was like a culmination of years of work in a quarter of football. You have created an incredible culture at Lubbock Christian. For listeners not aware, I I taught a sports performance class, and coach, you were kind enough to let my class walk through. And their takeaway from watching you coach your coaches before the start of the season was, I've never encountered a culture like this where the leadership is so bought into the overall vision, but also bought into one another. And so that culture is there. Your athletic development program from Warbird, I say this to my wife all the time. If you go watch a Lubbock Christian game, you can tell that Lubbock Christian is going to be there in the fourth quarter. Their kids are conditioned differently. They train differently. They're instructed how to eat differently. And granted, they're high school kids. They're going to make mistakes and they're going to, goof off in the weight room from time to time. But the culture that you've created starting in that weight room, and maybe it goes back to your Nebraska roots, Boyd Epley and those things.
That's right.
That concept, and if you're listening to this, you can't see it, but there's Max out and there's an Air Jordan behind this concept. How do you lead young athletes, not just to play well, but to become strong, grounded, whole person humans?
Well, I think that's where it starts, is right there. Is we talk about it being holistic. Is I just think so often, even as humans, certainly as coaches, is we just feel like we've got this portion. Like I check my faith box on Sundays, and I check my marriage box on Wednesday night date nights, and I do my job 8 to 5 and hump day and ready for the weekend. Everything is segmented, and I just don't see that. I don't see that in Scripture. I don't even see that in wisdom in the world. Like the way to do it right is everything holistically bound. And when you can be your authentic self at all times, that's when you can maximize. That's when you can flourish. And when we talk about like true fulfillment, and that being kind of the reward is like being your absolute best to the call of purpose and potential that you're called to. Why would we set a goal anything lower than that? And so we just said it really clearly from the get-go is, I believe in clear visions, consistency, and confrontation. I think those 3 C's are what I tell everybody. Like, that's how we build culture. And we have rival schools that come over all the time. And they're like, hey, tell us how you guys built this. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you. And I'm not going to hide anything from you, because I don't think you're going to do it, because it takes a special staff. It takes special administration. It takes unbelievable parents. And so, it's hard to do it, hard to replicate. That's what makes Lubbock Christian so special. But getting kids to buy in on, I want to maximize the talents I've been given, whether it's 1 talent, 2 talents, or 5 talents. I need to maximize my role that I've been given in this time. And this guy's going to help me do it. And these coaches are going to help me do it. And so, when the master comes back and says, what have you done with the talents I've given you? I want to be able to say, I've invested them, I've worked, I've trained, and here they are, all for your glory. And so that shapes how we do all of life, and how we love at home, how we honor our father and mother, how we work in English class, or, in our summer job. I mean, it matters. And that's what we want, is what you talked about earlier, is we want young men and young women to leave here and to just say, that wasn't just lessons I learned. Like, that's a lifestyle, and that's how I live. It's changing the trajectory of my life. And then husbands and wives from other schools that end up marrying our kids, they're like, man, I'm so thankful for Lubbock Christian, because I've got a rock star who's got this different perspective to the way they do marriage and life and washing dishes and driving the carpool. Everything matters, and they totally try to max out this one life, this brief life that we get.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I've heard it said, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And
that's right.
If the switch is always on, you don't have to flip it. Like, there's something to this max out mentality, but you also are able to tap in. I love how you say, the extra point is one of the best litmus tests of a team's character, because, maybe you just gave up a big play, but you go in and you block that kick. Like, that tells me something about who you are as a human being. And that follows through into life. I mean, when you're in the midst of destruction or something that's come unraveled, the easy thing to do is to just stay there and to mope and to pout. But the lessons you teach are that, we're not superhuman. It's okay to grieve, but at some point you've got to summon the strength to give me an all-out, max-out best effort. I love that.
Yeah, amen to that.
So today, culture is really all about performance and pressure. And, Lubbock Christian is known throughout the area as being successful athletic program for sure. And you'll get kids that have aspirations, and their athletic identity defines who they are. And they may go there thinking like, I'm going to go win a state championship in football or in basketball or whatever. How do you help athletes navigate that identity beyond the game? Because I know you're not just a sports school.
Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the most important things we do, right? I think the gospel is number one. And I think in line, everything else really flows out of that. It's not like there's one, then two. It's like one flows into everything. And the gospel absolutely talks about identity. And so we're really open with our kids about who am I? Who am I? And we talk about that all the time. Who are you? And let them put down foolish, worldly definitions about who they are. We talk about there's core primary identity that comes from your eternal creator. You know, he should say, if he was here at the beginning of earth and he created you and knit you, then he probably has a right to say who you are. And then there's secondary identity, and that's the titles we get from life. So I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a coach, but all those can be taken away, honestly. And so that's why those are secondary identities. And then there's those tertiary identities, and that's where it comes into race, socioeconomic scale, and all this. And so often we get our secondary and our tertiary flipped with our primary, and that's when life goes awry. And so, yeah, we talk about this pretty clearly, and I'm passionate about it because I think it's a foundational truth, is who you are in your core is someone that is not shaken by whether that ball goes through the uprights or not, or whether you hit that pitch or not, or whether you pass that test. Like, those are secondary or even tertiary areas. The core is the key. And when you get the core right, then the others flow out properly as well, right? It's like the gears fit in place. And so I had a guy that wanted to come in a couple of years. He said, hey, I want to film your pregame talk and make some highlight videos. I said, that would be awesome. I said, the only issue is my pregame talk is probably not very fun. I said, because I talk about one thing. I talk about identity. And I said, and I don't get real rah-rah. I said, because here's the deal. My kids, the peace of mind, the freedom to go out and play. We talked about this just a little bit ago. That is what matters way more than this spitfire and vinegar that can be gone in an instance. I remember going to a Husker game and them kicking off and the other team, and we got the tunnel walk and Nebraska football, and the stadium has such an awesome home field advantage. And so you're feeling the momentum, and we kick off and they would turn it for a touchdown. And I'm probably 12 years old. And in that moment, boom, I'm like, that's a great lesson. Is all this pregame talk and hoopla, it means nothing because it just emptied like air out of a balloon. And so therefore, I don't spend too much time hyping us up in pregame. It's about getting our mind right. Who am I at my core, in my identity? When everything goes wrong in the third quarter, who am I still at my core in my identity? And that's what allows Lubbock Christian to be steady in the bow for 4 quarters. Now, it is not, we're not perfect on it. And the head coach is the chief center, but I just think that's where we start. And that's where you got to always circle back to.
No, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. I've seen this in my own son. He came to Lubbock Christian from a school. He coming off a surgery, and he was broken physically and recovering, but I think mentally, like, he wasn't sure where sports fit. I mean, you've experienced that as an athlete where an injury can shake you and make you wonder, like, all these plans that I had are suddenly in question. And you and your team and those teachers and that staff poured into him, and he's now at Lubbock Christian University and flourishing. I don't know that he would be there if he hadn't gone and connected and had life poured into him the way you and your team and your staff did that. So personally, from man to man, I can't thank you enough for that. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I could talk for a long while. I got 2 left for you here. If a young coach came to you today for advice, what's the goals? What's the most valuable nugget? One thing that you could offer them for the road that they have ahead. You're now a mid-career coach. You're not ready to retire. There's a lot of miles left on the odometer for you, but you're not a young coach anymore either. What's that one thing you could give them that you think would be most beneficial for their journey ahead?
That's great to think about it, man. If there was one thing you could give, and I think about my GAs and my young coaches that have come through here, and And if there was one thing, you know, I think I'm just going to copy the greatest teacher ever, right? Is what is the first and greatest commandment? And it's loving vertically and it's loving horizontally. And the reason why that is crucial is because sadly in our profession, I mentioned this with Tom Osborne, how I thought everybody was like Tom Osborne. And I realized, man, he's really different. Is we just don't do a great job of loving people well. I mean, if you can't play for me anymore, see ya. You know, if you get injured, next man up. And that doesn't just mean the backup's got to be ready, but it means like literally, you know, I don't care about you. At the end of the day, if you can check your heart and you can truly love God well by your sport, and you can be out of what we receive, we can love others well. That just changes worlds. It changes eternities. It changes legacies. Kids want to feel loved. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. And then, maybe I'll run through a wall for you. But you're not, you know, it's not even a bait and switch. It's not authentically like, I just truly love you because of what I've been given. I love because I was first loved, and I want to pass it along. And out of that freedom, that's how life becomes truly meaningful.
And listeners, this is not just platitudes being spouted by. I've got a text on my phone that I revisit from time to time from you. My son was dealing with some stuff, and I felt like he had been kind of discarded by some coaches prior to his stop there. And your message was completely the opposite. It's in whatever capacity you can be here, we want you here. And the strength, and it's not just my son. There are young athletes and young students all over Lubbock who are enjoying that same idea that we will embrace you. You can be a part of this community. Your acceptance here is not dependent on how well you play. It is literally unconditional. Switch it up a little bit here on you. I love music and the emotions that it can frequently represent. If we were to watch a highlight reel of Chris Softley's life so far, what song would you pick as the soundtrack and why?
Man, I've never been asked this question. What an in-depth question. You're going to see the limitations of my creative freedom here. It's funny how
Tay says Softley's got about 4 songs he plays for Monday.
That's so true, right? I mean, if it works, right? Now I tell you what, there is a song. If I could, I'll give you the ideal would be "Audience of One" by Big Daddy Weave. I've been listening to it since I was a college athlete, and it's just kind of the mindset of like getting me in the right flow of like, why am I here? We talked about this with identity. Who am I? Says who. So why am I on this earth, and how do I make that practical through my training on purpose? Like "Audience of One" by Big Daddy Weave would probably be the number one song. It'd be funny to ask my wife that question and see what song she'd come up with. She's got better musical repertoire than I do, but that would be my choice.
Awesome. Well, I dropped those into a playlist on Spotify, all the guests. It's like a mixtape of all my guests. So that one will make it. How can listeners follow or connect? I know you're not huge on social media personally. I follow your wife's work to kind of see what's going on with the family, but how can folks continue to be involved in what's going on either in your life or in the work that you're doing at Lubbock Christian?
I appreciate that. She's been on me about getting more into that. I still got to work through my heart on all that. I know there can be very much significant usage from that, and it can be a blessing. But so I'm on Twitter X at Coach Softley, and then I don't even know what Autumn's is, but yeah, thankfully she updates everybody on who we are and what we're doing. And half the time I learn about our incidences and vacations from other people. I had somebody walk up to me the other day and they told me a doctor's name, and I was like, thank you for giving me that random doctor's name. And then, kid you not, 2 minutes later, somebody else walked up and told me another doctor's name. And I thought, we must have posted something that we're looking for a new doctor or something. And so I appreciate that. But yeah, at Coach Softley, and then at LC Eagle Football, at Lubbock Christian High School, and all that comes with that. And whatever Autumn's is, at Autumn Softley, that's probably the one you'll want to follow.
Yeah.
She'll keep you the most up to date.
100%. Well, the name of the show is Becoming Undone. The idea is sometimes life can break us and we come apart at the seams. And then beyond that, there's a purpose that's left unfulfilled. We are undone. What for Coach Chris Softley remains undone?
I think I want to continue to live a grace-filled life. I think I want to be better at seeing people as Christ sees them, at having time for interruptions, at being willing to let my schedule not lead the way as a type A person, and living out of that freedom of which he came for. So that would be that'd be the next step. I probably have a lot of answers to that one. There's a lot still undone in my life. We're a work in progress, but that would be the one that is most important.
Love it. Again, talking with Coach Chris Softley, head football coach and athletic director at Lubbock Christian High School. Coach, it's been a real honor. I thank you so much. This one's been a long time coming in my mind. I can't thank you enough for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Last little bit, I always stitch this in. If you could just introduce yourself and say, and I am undone.
You got it. I'm Chris Softley, and I am undone.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to stop it there.